Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. Dad's Destined for Greatness. I'm your host, Ian Brown, and man, what a pleasure it is today to talk to you guys about things we can do to be better dads, and just bring y'all along with me on my track to great fatherhood, great dadhood. Figure I'll just tell y'all a little background about me. For the first episodes, we talked about just principles and things that I feel that will help you. We'll put them as like foundational cornerstones for you to become like the best dad you can. So I shared that with you guys on the last few episodes. Now we're kind of just going to jump into dadhood, but first give you some background on who I am and why this subject is so important to me. It's important to me because I grew up born in 1982. Grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. My parents are from New York, and we were raised in that generation, man. The generation '80s babies, where we spent the majority of our time home alone. My parents worked 8-hour days, both of them, and that was just to make enough to have make ends meet. And so, because of that, of course, my dad was only there for like a whole day in the house on Saturdays and Sundays. And those days right there, he pretty much wanted to be left alone and would do his routine. He's very obsessive compulsive. So he basically was focused on his routines, and he'd cut the grass, um, do some dishes, do some chores, watch the news, relax, watch Jeopardy, things like that. Sunday, we would go to church in the morning, go out to eat, and then go to church again at night there. And so, needless to say, I hardly spent any time with my dad. Didn't really get a chance to really get to know him. There wasn't a lot of vulnerability. There wasn't a lot of lessons learned, anything like that. And the reason why the dadhood thing is such an important subject to me, because I realized that, especially as boys, and it applies to girls too, that right, everybody needs a father figure in their life. And if you don't supply that need to your child, somebody else will fulfill that role. I'll say that again. Everybody needs a father. Point blank, period. So you can either fill that role for your child, or a child will get it fulfilled by somebody else. Now, here's the trickiest thing. Nobody grows up and basically like says like externally, like verbally. A lot of times the kids won't be like, you know what, my dad's not present, therefore I'm gonna go out and hang out with these gang members and do all this crazy stuff and get myself into trouble. And if I'm a girl, I'm gonna go sleep around with a bunch of random guys, or I'm a guy, I'm gonna go, wild out, sleep with all these girls, getting all this gang activity, also like that. Yeah, they don't think that, right? But because you're looking for that father figure, you end up finding it in some very unfortunate places, which are a lot of older kids that also didn't have dads, who also were, doing things they're not supposed to be doing, and they end up becoming your leaders. And that's how it was with me, man. My dad, he never taught me how to fight, but I grew up like in the projects where he's fighting every freaking day. Mostly I had to fight just because I wore glasses, which is really stupid. And people were acting stupid, but because I wore glasses, people were going to pick on me. So therefore, I had to fight every day, just because people were always trying to take my stuff. And my dad not once showed me how to, put on my dukes, fight, defend myself, or anything like that. It was all pretty much trial and error. I would make one swing, like, oh, don't swing like that. They'll duck underneath you. Oh, okay, if you duck straight, if you punch straight, okay, you got to hit them with a combo, or otherwise like that, or keep driving forward. All these things I just learned by trial and error. I was constantly just getting my butt kicked. And, I had an older kid who basically took me underneath his wing, took me to the gym. We worked out together. He taught me how to lift weights, taught me how to get strong, taught me how to fight. And man, I'll tell you what, I mean, that was like the right kid and the wrong kid, because after that, oh man, it was knuckle up city. Like, I started swinging on kids twice my size. Like, hey, remember that time you did that? Payback. So then I was on a freaking tear, so much so where his cousin was all like, man, this guy's so wild. How do you know you can trust him to stay loyal? And I was like, bro, I'm a loyal person. That's the one quality I've always had, is people that looked out for me. Oh no, I was ride or die to the end. And that was very unfortunate, because my loyalty proved to be a bad quality in my neck of the woods, because loyalty had me blind in areas where I didn't see that folks were getting ready to stab me in the back. My best friends. It also made me naive. It also put me on the wrong side of power struggles, not realizing that the power dynamics in the neighborhood had shifted, and me staying loyal and basically getting dominated on it. And then when my buddy went to jail, I was basically on my own. I was just getting stomped on all the time. And so what does this have to do with fatherhood? It has to do with fatherhood because if my dad was present, and if he would have known what I know now, man, those little 2 days that he had, he would have been sewing into me. Or just like an hour or 30 minutes a day after work, he would have been sewing into me, and he could have led me down a different path. Now, I am very fortunate that I had other father figures step in at some very critical points of my life, to where it was about to be like the point of no return. I remember example, I was working at Kroger, and this was up there, this was in Snellville, Georgia. After my parents had moved us from Atlanta, they sold everything and got us out of projects, because I almost got shot. I almost had been stabbed a few times, went to jail, all kinds of crazy things. And they were like, all right, we got to get out of here. So now we're in the suburbs, and I'm taking a lot of this same crap with me. And I remember I was working at Kroger, and I just flat out didn't want to pack or, do bags that day. I was bagging groceries. I didn't want to do that a day. And I made up a lie and told this guy why I didn't want to be there in the shift. I made up a lie so I can go to a football game, and keep in mind, right, man, we're in the South, man. This is Georgia, right? There's racism rooted in a lot of different things. I wasn't raised like that, but the people around me, a lot of them are racist, right? So this guy just thinks that he's going to put hands on me and physically try to stop me from leaving, because he probably was used to getting away with that. He had never dealt with a person like me before, who comes from this crazy neck of the woods. So I straight up decked him. And in true stereotypical fashion, back at those times, and it is like that at times, everybody automatically thought he was the victim. And then they call the police, and I run. And I remember my mom calling me on my car phone. I update myself on my car phone, and basically said, Kroger called me. The police are looking for you, and they're about to put out an all points bulletin for you, ABB, if you don't show up. Meet me at the Kroger right now. So I go there, and rightly so, I felt like I was in the right to defend myself. And then I found out real quick that it didn't matter if I was in the right, if I was in the wrong. Unfortunately, because I was a black kid in an all-white area, and I happened to be the one who chose violence, instead of just letting this guy abuse me by putting his hands on me and just being like, oh, I'm just going to take it, I end up being, subject to some stereotypical behavior where the cops automatically took his side. and they're getting ready to lock me up. And my mom was able to calm things down and told me to be quiet. And I didn't realize that day I learned I had just turned 17. Well, in the state of Georgia, that's the age where you are legally an adult and can be charged with criminal charges as an adult. So, needless to say, I found out, oh crap, I'm about to go to adult jail. It's about to be a whole nother thing. And that would have permanently messed up my entire life, gave me a record, would have made me a felon. What does this have to do with dadhood, right? All these things led because my dad wasn't active, he wasn't present. And if I had some active dad like that, yes, they would have taught me, okay, yeah, it's okay to stand up for yourself and defend yourself. However, some things require judgment and wisdom. And in a situation where you are literally the only black person working there, you're in the South, people are racist around you, they follow all kinds of stereotypes, they follow all kinds of stereotypes, they fit all kinds of stereotypes. I would have been wise enough to know, you know what? Okay, this guy just put hands on me, physically trying to restrain me. Like, okay, maybe I should have been like, help! Look, he's abusing me. He's putting his hands on me, my private parts. Something. I don't just yell something crazy to where in a way that would have flipped it on him. But because I chose to act in stereotypical, unfortunately, what people think a lot of black people acting angry and didn't choose to take the right approach, because I could have taken a different approach and gotten both jobs done. I could have gotten out of there, number one, which wouldn't have been right. I acknowledge that now because I lied. But I could have got out of that situation and could have easily been like, you know what? Say something crazy so these people know this guy's touching me when he shouldn't be. He would get all in trouble, and then I'm like, yeah, call the police. And then things would have been turned in my favor. But because I chose to act in anger, that's what happened. And they said a lesson learned for the day, man, is make sure you're present in your child's life, your son's life. I feel like God gave me, ironically, three boys that I can sow into, be the father for them that I wanted. I'm not saying my dad he's definitely a good guy. He's a fellow Christian believer, thing like that, but his dad wasn't present. His dad also died at a young age from a heart attack after a robbery. His dad smoked and drank, fit a bunch of negative stereotypes of a black man. And, you know, my grandma used to be, was the daughter of a slave before, abolishment. She was born in like the 1910s. And so she would tie my dad to a bedpost and whip him like she probably got whipped as a kid, or how her mom whipped her because of the kid, because all that trauma, passes down from generation to generation. And so as a dad, it's important that we're present in our kids' life and that we slow down and not act the same way that our parents acted. If we didn't like something our parents did, that tells us there's something probably wrong there. Slow down, think about why you don't like it, and don't do it to your kids, and find a different way to implement, punishment or whatever the case is. But man, we got to be present in our kids' life, like our kids' life, their quality of life, the sanity of life, the next generation, their kids, their children, their grandchildren, like, are all depending on you right now. And everything we do does matter, no matter how big, how small. I remember just the smallest things that I thought didn't mean anything as a kid. I see those created the biggest wounds in me right now. And so make sure y'all are present with your kids this weekend. Of course, it's, Columbus Indigenous People Day holiday, and I knew my kids were going to have some extra days, so we wanted to go camping, but I knew it wasn't going to work out. So we got a big backyard now, so I decided that I was going to camp in the backyard. Um, and even though I wasn't feeling good, I was feeling sick, still made it happen, made a memorable night. We got some card games, did some meme games, things like that, things get my kids, all to get along, um, for, good moment in time, say a few hours. There was a lot of laughter. Um, we shared some quality moments. Um, my wife made us some stew. We had some hot dogs. We watched the George Foreman movie, but we're just hanging out in the backyard, man, creating some memories. And those things, as small as I think they are, my wife told me behind the scenes that when I left to go to the store to get supplies for the camp, that my oldest, who I want to continue building my relationship with, because he unfortunately got the least amount of me, because I am active duty military and I was on a majority of deployments when he was in that middle age. I was like 4 to 12, and so he got the least amount of me. Spent the most time around my wife, and you can tell just in certain things, he would act in ways that I would not find prevalent, but because he spent more time with all women, he tends to just emulate what he's been taught. So we're having to rediscover how to act like a man in those situations. But he told my wife, he's like, man, I got a good dad because he's sick and he still decided to push through so he can spend time with me. That right there, man. Oh, I'll try not to cry right now, man. That right there, that was heartfelt, sincere. That's how I knew I'm headed in the right direction. I'm wishing you guys these same types of wins. Love you guys. Until next time, my friends. Remember, you're destined to be a great dad, and go out there and make it happen.